In the first months of 2024, somewhere along the long eastern front in Ukraine, a Russian armored group begins moving across open terrain. From the air, the scene looks simple: tanks at the front, armored vehicles behind them, and infantry packed inside, waiting for the order to dismount. There are no obvious explosions at first, no visible defenders, no line of fire that can be seen from ground level. Just a column moving through what seems to be an empty field. Then the first vehicle strikes a mine. In 1 second, the whole logic of the attack changes. The vehicle stops. The vehicles behind it slow down. The formation begins to lose rhythm. And what looks at first like one isolated incident quickly reveals itself as part of something much larger. This is not a random ambush and not a simple exchange of fire. It is a layered system. One stage leads into the next. One mistake creates the conditions for another. And very quickly, the battlefield starts to behave almost like a trap that had already been prepared before the assault even began. Once you understand the sequence, it becomes impossible to look at armored attacks in the same way again. Subscribe to Military Force to follow how the modern battlefield is being transformed in real time. Russian armored columns usually move forward with a clear operational purpose. Their structure is familiar from decades of armored doctrine. Tanks lead the way, infantry fighting vehicles and armored personnel carriers follow, and the soldiers remain inside until the vehicles reach the area where the infantry can deploy. The logic behind this is speed, concentration, and shock. Move fast, keep firepower together, reach the defensive line before the enemy can fully organize, then put infantry on the ground and expand the breach. In older assumptions about armored warfare, this kind of movement could be extremely dangerous for the defender. A column that keeps momentum can close distance quickly. Tanks provide protection and direct fire. Armored vehicles deliver infantry where they are needed. If the attack develops fast enough, the defending side may have only a short window to react. That is why open terrain has traditionally been seen as useful for armored forces. Fewer obstacles mean fewer delays. Fewer delays mean more pressure on the defender. But the war in Ukraine has changed one of the basic conditions that armored doctrine depends on: visibility. The field may look empty to the crews inside the vehicles, but it is often not empty to the defenders watching from above. Small reconnaissance drones can detect movement long before the column reaches the line of contact. Many of these drones are difficult to see, difficult to hear, and hard to shoot down in time. They do not need to destroy anything by themselves. Their main value is that they reveal the attack while it is still forming. That changes the entire engagement. The fight does not really begin when the first gun fires. It begins when the column is spotted, tracked, and understood. From that moment, the defenders can see the direction of travel, the spacing between vehicles, the type of equipment involved, and the most likely route of approach. They can watch the attack develop in real time instead of guessing where it may arrive. This means Ukrainian units are not forced to choose positions in panic. They can prepare. They can assign fire zones. They can wait for the column to enter the part of the terrain where the defensive system has the greatest effect. Artillery coordinates may already be registered. Minefields may already be placed along the most likely paths. Drone operators may already be watching the road, the field edge, the tree line, and the gaps between obstacles. From the Russian side, the ground ahead may still appear open and passable. But from the Ukrainian side, the same ground has already been turned into a controlled engagement zone. That is the central difference. One side believes it is beginning an attack. The other side has already shaped the space into a place where the attack will lose options step by step. This is why speed no longer automatically creates safety. Speed works when it produces surprise, confusion, and pressure. But if every movement is observed, then speed becomes easier to anticipate. Mass also loses part of its value. A large group of vehicles can apply force, but it also creates a bigger signature: more dust, more heat, more noise, and more predictable movement. The defender does not need to destroy everything immediately. They only need to disrupt the formation at the correct point. That first disruption is usually achieved by mines. On this battlefield, mines are not simply weapons placed in the ground to blow up vehicles. They are tools for controlling movement. They can stop the first vehicle, compress the formation behind it, push other vehicles toward dangerous routes, and create the conditions for artillery and drones to do the rest. A mine does not have to destroy a tank completely to be effective. It only has to stop it. When the lead tank or armored vehicle hits an anti-tank mine, the impact is immediate. Even if the crew survives and the vehicle is not fully destroyed, it may lose a track, become immobilized, or block the path. That one stopped vehicle affects every vehicle behind it. Drivers slow down to avoid collision. Commanders must decide whether to wait, bypass, reverse, or continue. In those few seconds, the clean structure of the column begins to break down. Spacing collapses. Vehicles that were supposed to maintain distance now become crowded. The forward movement that gave the assault its strength begins to disappear. Instead of one organized push, the formation becomes a chain of separate crews reacting to danger under pressure. The moment a driver tries to bypass the disabled vehicle, the problem often becomes worse. Moving a few meters to the side may seem like the only option, but that side route may also be mined. In heavily prepared areas, this is exactly the purpose of the minefield. It is not only meant to block one route, it is meant to punish attempts to find another. A second vehicle may hit another mine, then a third vehicle may stop. In a short period of time, the attacking column can turn from a moving formation into a stalled cluster of damaged equipment. Once the vehicles lose freedom of movement, the entire character of the fight changes. Mobility is the central advantage of armored warfare. A moving tank is hard to hit, hard to predict, and capable of applying pressure. A stopped tank is something else. It becomes a fixed point. It can still be dangerous, but it is easier to observe, easier to target, and easier to isolate. This is the first major goal of the defensive system. Turn movement into stillness. A disabled vehicle at the front blocks the most direct route. Damaged vehicles along the sides reduce the available space. Other drivers become hesitant because every turn could lead to another mine. The battlefield begins to create its own choke points. But these choke points are not accidental. They are often the result of terrain, mine placement, observation, and planned fire zones working together. In that narrow space, vehicles cannot spread out properly. They cannot accelerate. They cannot easily turn around. If they remain close together, they become vulnerable to artillery. If they separate, they risk mines and drone strikes. If they dismount infantry too early, the soldiers may be exposed in open ground. If they wait too long, the entire column remains trapped. This is why mines are so powerful in a layered defense. Their purpose is not limited to destruction. They influence behavior. They shape decisions. They force the attacker to choose between bad options. Every reaction to the minefield creates new exposure, and every delay gives the defender more time to bring other weapons into the fight. From a distance, it may look chaotic. Vehicles stop, reverse, turn, scatter, and bunch together. But the chaos is not meaningless. It is the predictable result of an attack entering a space where the defender has already removed many of the good choices. The column is still trying to move forward, but it is no longer advancing with initiative. It is being managed by the pressure around it. And once the formation slows down, the second layer begins. Artillery turns delay into damage. After mines disrupt the rhythm of the attack, Ukrainian artillery can exploit the moment. This phase is not always about one dramatic direct hit. It is about sustained pressure. It is about forcing crews to move, stop, panic, correct, reverse, and expose themselves again. The weapons involved can include towed howitzers, larger caliber guns, and multiple rocket systems such as BM-21 Grad launchers. Each system has a different role depending on range, target density, available ammunition, and timing. What matters most is that these weapons are not firing blindly. The same drones that detected the column can also help correct artillery fire. Operators watch where rounds land, send updated information, and adjust the next strike. The battlefield becomes a loop. Observe, fire, correct, fire again. In earlier wars, this process could take much longer. In Ukraine, the connection between drone observation and artillery fire has shortened the time between detection and impact dramatically. This creates a deadly problem for stalled armor. A vehicle that stops in a monitored zone may not remain simply stopped for long. Its position can be passed to artillery. If the first rounds miss, the next rounds can be adjusted. Even near misses can matter. A shell does not always need a direct hit to change the behavior of a crew. A round landing close to a vehicle can damage external equipment, break tracks, injure exposed soldiers, force the driver to move suddenly, or make the commander take a route he would not have chosen under calmer conditions. That is the broader purpose of artillery in this sequence. It adds stress. It multiplies uncertainty. It makes every second more dangerous. A vehicle may accelerate to escape incoming shells and drive into a mined area. Another may reverse and block the path of the vehicles behind it. A crew may dismount too early. A commander may lose contact with other vehicles. A driver may turn toward what looks like open ground, only to move directly into a prepared fire zone. Under artillery pressure, decisions become faster, but not necessarily better. This is where the layered defense becomes especially effective. Mines create the initial disruption. Artillery makes the disruption grow. It does not need to destroy the entire column. It only needs to keep the formation from regaining control. The longer the attackers remain under fire, the more their small problems become large ones. A column that began as a coordinated assault becomes a collection of isolated reactions. Each vehicle crew sees only part of the battlefield. Smoke, dust, noise, explosions, and damaged equipment reduce awareness. Radio communication may become confused. Orders may arrive late or not at all. Some crews may continue forward, while others stop or withdraw. Infantry may not know when to dismount. Commanders may not know which route is still usable. This breakdown matters because armored attacks depend on timing. Tanks, vehicles, infantry, and supporting fire all need to work together. When the timing collapses, the attack loses coherence. It may still contain powerful weapons, but those weapons are no longer acting as one system. They are surviving separately. Artillery also shapes movement psychologically. Crews under fire do not only react to actual hits, they react to the expectation of the next hit. If rounds begin landing closer, every driver knows that staying still may be fatal. But moving may be fatal too. That is the trap. There is no safe option, only different kinds of risk. As pressure builds, mistakes stack on top of each other. A vehicle that moves to avoid artillery may enter a minefield. A vehicle disabled by a mine becomes an artillery target. Infantry that dismounts to escape a burning vehicle becomes visible to drones. A unit that retreats may reveal a new route. Every attempt to solve one problem can create another. This is not traditional armored warfare in the older sense of two forces meeting and exchanging fire across open ground. It is a sequence of control. The defender uses observation to understand the movement, mines to break the movement, artillery to deepen the disruption, and then drones to strike what remains. And that brings in the third layer. Once artillery has slowed, scattered, and exposed the column, drones move from observation to destruction. This is one of the defining features of the war in Ukraine. Small unmanned systems are no longer secondary tools. They are central to how the battlefield works. Reconnaissance drones remain above the engagement area, maintaining the live picture. They track damaged vehicles, abandoned equipment, infantry movement, and attempts to regroup. The crew of a vehicle may believe that it has escaped the immediate danger by pulling back behind a tree line or entering a depression in the ground. But if a drone continues to watch, that position may still be known. And once it is known, it can be attacked. FPV drones enter when the target has already been weakened or exposed. Unlike artillery, which relies on coordinates and impact areas, FPV drones are controlled visually in real time. The operator can guide the drone toward the target, adjust the approach, choose the angle, and aim for a vulnerable point. This makes them especially dangerous against immobilized or disorganized vehicles. The target selection is not random. A tank with a damaged track but an intact gun may still be valuable to destroy. An infantry fighting vehicle trying to withdraw may still carry soldiers or ammunition. A vehicle abandoned by its crew may still be recoverable if left alone. A group of soldiers entering a trench may believe they are safe, but their position may now be visible. Every one of these targets has value, and drones allow the defender to attack them with precision. FPV drones often seek weak points: rear armor, engine compartments, open hatches, damaged sections, or areas where protective systems have already been compromised. A small explosive charge may not match the destructive power of a large artillery shell, but when delivered accurately into the right place, it can disable or destroy equipment that costs many times more. This changes the economics of the battlefield as well as the tactics. Expensive armored vehicles can be threatened by relatively cheap drones. Recovery becomes harder because damaged vehicles remain under observation. Crews attempting to repair or evacuate equipment may themselves become targets. A vehicle that might once have been recovered after the battle can now be finished off before recovery teams arrive. For infantry, the drone threat is even more psychologically intense. In older battlefield assumptions, reaching a trench, dugout, or fortified position increased the chance of survival. Cover mattered, depth mattered, concealment mattered. It still matters, but drones have weakened the old sense of security. A trench is not invisible from above. A dugout can be spotted. A group of soldiers moving into cover can be followed. Explosives can be dropped into confined positions or flown directly into them. This means that reaching cover does not necessarily end the engagement. It may only begin another phase of it. Soldiers who have survived the armored approach and dismounted into trenches can still be observed, tracked, and attacked. If they move, they risk exposure. If they stay, they risk drone strikes. If they spread out, they may lose coordination. If they cluster together, they become a better target. The result is a battlefield where there is almost no true safe zone near the front. A position is safe only if it is not detected, or if the enemy lacks the means to strike it in time. Once detection happens, safety begins to disappear. The engagement continues as long as observation and strike capability remain connected. This is why drones do not replace mines or artillery. They complete the chain. Mines interrupt the attack. Artillery applies pressure and creates damage. Drones identify the remaining opportunities and finish targets that might otherwise survive. Together, these systems create cumulative destruction. The purpose is not one single spectacular blow. The purpose is to make damage build until the attack can no longer function. And yet, despite this pressure, some Russian units still manage to push forward. This is where another illusion appears. The illusion that reaching a trench means success. Even after losing vehicles, Russian forces may commit additional groups. New tanks and armored vehicles may move in from another direction. Another wave may attempt to apply pressure on the same defensive line. The goal remains familiar: reach Ukrainian positions, dismount infantry, occupy trenches, and create a foothold that can be reinforced later. From a distance, this can look like persistence. In military logic, repeated pressure can sometimes exhaust a defender. If one assault fails, another may find a weakness. If one route is blocked, another route may open. If losses are accepted, a commander may believe that enough force will eventually push through. This is not new. Many armies have relied on pressure, repetition, and reserves to wear down defensive positions. But the problem in Ukraine is that every new wave enters a battlefield that is already watched, mapped, and prepared. The same sequence can repeat. The vehicles are detected, their route is tracked, mines and obstacles slow them. Artillery begins to land, drones search for vulnerable targets. The next assault may come from a slightly different direction, but if it moves through the same kind of monitored environment, it faces the same kind of layered response. This repetition is important. It shows that the problem is not just one failed attack or one unlucky mine. It reflects a deeper difficulty in adapting armored tactics to a battlefield where movement is visible almost from the beginning. When surprise is limited, when drones are constant, and when fire can be corrected quickly, old assumptions become dangerous. Still, there are moments when attackers appear to make progress. Infantry may reach trenches. A small group may enter a forward position. A vehicle may arrive close enough to unload soldiers. On a traditional map, this might look like a breach or a partial success. But on this battlefield, arrival is not the same as control. Control requires stability. It requires communication, resupply, reinforcement, and the ability to hold a position after reaching it. If infantry enters a trench but cannot move safely, cannot bring in more ammunition, cannot evacuate wounded, and cannot stop drones from observing them, then the position remains fragile. A trench can become a trap as easily as a shelter. Drones continue to watch. Artillery can be redirected. FPV systems can attack vehicles that brought the infantry in. Anti-tank weapons can target any armor that remains nearby. Infantry weapons such as RPG-7 launchers may also engage vehicles at close range, while anti-tank guided missiles like Javelin add another threat from farther away. Not every missile hits, not every drone reaches its target, not every artillery round lands where intended. Real combat is messy, uncertain, and full of failure. But the cumulative effect still matters. Even a missed shot can force movement. Even a drone that does not destroy its target can make soldiers reveal their position. Even artillery that lands nearby can prevent a unit from organizing. The layered system does not require perfection. It requires persistence and coordination. It works because each layer increases pressure and reduces options. This is why a temporary breakthrough may not become a lasting gain. A small group may enter a position, but if it cannot be reinforced, it may be isolated. A vehicle may deliver infantry, but if it is destroyed afterward, withdrawal becomes harder. Soldiers may occupy a trench, but if drones can strike inside it, the position may become impossible to hold. The attacker has reached the location, but the defender still controls the conditions around it. That is the critical difference. Gaining access to ground is not the same as controlling ground. Controlling ground is not the same as holding it over time, and holding it over time is increasingly difficult when the enemy can observe, adjust, and strike continuously. Across the front, this pattern points to a larger transformation in warfare. The central issue is not simply whether one side has tanks and the other has drones. The issue is how systems are connected. Mines, artillery, drones, anti-tank weapons, intelligence, and communications work together to create a battlefield where movement is constantly exposed and mistakes are punished quickly. Armored forces were designed to exploit speed, mass, and shock. Those qualities still matter. Tanks are not obsolete in a simple sense. Armored vehicles still provide protection, firepower, and mobility. But they no longer operate in the same environment as before. A tank moving without concealment, electronic protection, infantry coordination, engineering support, and air defense coverage can become vulnerable very quickly. The war in Ukraine shows that the future of armored warfare may depend less on the tank itself and more on the system around it. Can the column suppress drones? Can it clear mines fast enough? Can it move under constant observation without losing coordination? Can it protect its infantry after dismount? Can it recover damaged vehicles while still under surveillance? Can it break the defender's observation loop before the defender breaks its momentum? These questions matter far beyond Ukraine. For the United States and NATO, the lesson is uncomfortable. Western armies have long trained around speed, combined arms, precision fire, and air superiority. But what happens when the battlefield is saturated with small drones? What happens when electronic warfare, minefields, loitering munitions, artillery correction, and cheap FPV systems make movement visible and dangerous at every stage? What happens when even a powerful formation can be detected early and attacked in layers before it reaches its objective? The answer is not that armor has no future. The answer is that armor can no longer be treated as a self-contained solution. It must be part of a broader survival system. It needs reconnaissance, counter-drone capabilities, engineering units, electronic warfare, smoke, deception, rapid breaching, dispersed movement, and extremely tight coordination with infantry and artillery. Without those elements, even heavy vehicles can be forced into the same pattern: detected, slowed, compressed, struck, and finished. What happened to these Russian armored assaults is therefore not just a battlefield episode. It is a warning about the direction of modern war. The side that sees first often shapes the fight. The side that shapes movement often controls the timing. The side that controls timing can turn even open terrain into a trap. The sequence is clear. Reconnaissance drones detect the advance. Minefields break the rhythm. Artillery turns delay into damage. FPV drones and precision strikes finish exposed targets. Infantry that reaches trenches remains under observation. Reinforcements enter the same monitored space. The attack repeats, but the outcome often follows the same logic. This is modern combat moving away from raw force alone and toward information, control, and timing. Power still matters, but power that is seen too early can be prepared for. Speed still matters, but speed without concealment can become predictable. Armor still matters, but armor without protection from above may not survive long enough to decide the battle. And that is the deeper lesson. The battlefield is no longer defined only by what soldiers can see from the ground. It is defined by what drones can see from above, what artillery can reach from behind the lines, what mines can force vehicles to do, and how quickly all of these elements can be connected into one response. In this environment, every delay becomes dangerous, every mistake becomes visible, every exposed vehicle becomes a target, and every assumption from older forms of warfare has to be tested against a new reality. The enemy may be watching long before the first shot is fired. The real question is no longer whether armored forces can still attack. They can. The question is whether they can attack through a battlefield where surprise is rare, concealment is fragile, and every movement can be turned against them within minutes. That is the challenge now facing every modern army. Ukraine has shown how mines, artillery, and drones can work together to break armored momentum. The next question is whether the world's most advanced militaries are ready for a battlefield where exposure is constant. Decisions are compressed into seconds, and the price of one wrong move can be paid by an entire column. Subscribe to Military Force for more analysis on how modern warfare is evolving and why the lessons from Ukraine may shape the future of every army preparing for the next major conflict.